Pronombres de objeto indirecto. Hola amigos, bienvenidos a Spanish Lessons for Me. Me llamo Ángela. Hoy aprenderás cómo usar los pronombres de objeto indirecto. Antes de seguir, te pido que me des un me gusta y te suscribas si aprendes algo. Before we move on, I'd like to ask you to give me a like and subscribe. Share the video if you learn anything or if you like it. Recuerda repetir las frases y responder a mis preguntas en voz alta. If you're at a place that you can do so, please go ahead and write. The more you engage with the material, the more you will remember. Empecemos. First, let's begin with discussing what is an indirect object pronoun. En una oración, el pronombre de objeto indirecto nos informa a quién o para quién es la acción. Yo hablo a papá. I speak to dad. Who is the action for? Or to whom does the action impact? I am the one performing the action, but the action actually impacts somebody else. It impacts dad. That would be the indirect object noun. However, in conversation, we simplify things. If we all know that we're talking about dad, I could just say, I speak to him. Yo le hablo. Who do I speak to? To him. That to him is the indirect object pronoun. That is the one that we're going to be learning today. Ejemplo. Yo doy flores a mamá. The subject performing the action, yo. Yo soy el sujeto. Doy es el verbo. To whom or for whom are the flowers? They are for mom. That is the indirect object noun. Now, let's say that we all know now that we're talking about mom. So in my next sentence, I am just going to refer to mom as her. Por ejemplo, I could say, yo le doy chocolates. I'm no longer saying a mamá. I'm just saying I give her chocolates. That her is le. I give to her. Otro ejemplo. Yo le doy un libro. I give her a book. Notice that in English, we place the indirect object pronoun, her, after the verb. I give her. En español, ponemos el pronombre de objeto indirecto antes del verbo. We put it before the conjugated verb. El objeto indirecto responde la pregunta ¿a quién o para quién? Por ejemplo, mi mamá me habla en las mañanas. So my mom speaks in the morning. To me. Which one is to me? Me. Yo le digo a mi niña, te adoro. I say to my daughter, I adore you. Let's identify which one is the indirect object pronoun. To whom do I say, I adore you? To my daughter. To my daughter, that would be the indirect object noun. Which one is the indirect object pronoun? The indirect object pronoun would be le. You might be wondering, why do I have a mi niña? That already tells me that I say this to my daughter. Then why do I have le? And the reason is that you're saying, I say to her, I adore you. But le could be to my daughter or to my son or to my husband. So in this case, a mi niña is clarifying who that third person is. Otro ejemplo. Yo les doy a mis niños un regalo. Who do I give a present to? I give my children a present. I give a present to them. Les is the indirect object pronoun, and I put a mis niños because I'm clarifying that it is a mis niños, because les could refer just to them. It could be that I'm talking about my parents. So I have to put in there generally, if I'm using the third person, I have to clarify who it is that I am talking about. The indirect object pronouns that you see on the screen, me, te, le, are all singular. Me means to me or for me. Te, as you can imagine, means to you or for you. And in this case, it's the familiar to you versus the formal one. Le is to you or for you. This is the formal you. So if you're using usted, this is what you would be using, le. Le could refer also to him or for him, and to her and for her. Let's take a look at the plural ones. Nos, os, les. Nos means to us or for us. Os means to you all or for you all. That is when we are using vosotros. If you're using ustedes, to you all or for you all will be les. Les also means to them or for them. Take a minute to memorize them, because then that way you can have them handy for the next activity, which is to fill in the blank. Me, te, le, nos, os, les. Ejemplo. Yo le sirvo café. Let's say that it's to Rupert, a Ruperto. Therefore, I'm going to use le. Yo le sirvo café. So, I serve coffee to him. Como mencioné antes, as I mentioned before, el objeto indirecto va antes del verbo conjugado. The conjugated verb here is sirvo. Yo sirvo. I serve him is what we would say in English. Serve and then him. En español, yo le sirvo. In essence, if we were going to translate this literally, it would say, to him I serve coffee. Otro ejemplo. Les digo la verdad a mis padres. Te doy una sopa. And the literal translation is, I give you a soup. But when you ask it this way, you're asking, should I give you a soup? Or would you like me to give you a soup? Is what this would mean. Ellos nos ofrecen una disculpa. They offer us an apology. Again, all of this, just respond to the question to whom or for whom. Don't get confused with who the verb is conjugated for. For example, in the first one here it says, yo digo, I say to them. And the next one, I give. Yo doy to you. I give you. Ellos ofrecen, they offer, to us. Mi amiga muestra su ropa nueva. My friend shows her new clothes to me. Mi amiga me muestra su ropa nueva. Por último, lastly, en un minuto, I'm going to skip over les here. En un minuto, traigo la cuenta. In a minute, I bring the bill to you all. En un minuto, les traigo la cuenta. Your turn. Yo doy un beso al bebé. I give a kiss to the baby. So now you need to say to him or to her. Which one would you need? Remember, you have a list of me, te, le, nos, os, les. Hopefully you wrote it down. Which one would you put in the blank here? Yo le doy un beso al bebé. Otro ejemplo. Nosotros decimos hola al maestro. Who do we say hello to? To the teacher. To him. Which indirect object pronoun would you need? Hopefully you said le. Nosotros le decimos hola al maestro. Ustedes traen una invitación. A nosotros. Hopefully you said nos. Ustedes nos traen una invitación. Rob dice siempre la verdad. A mí. Rob me dice siempre la verdad. ¿Tú das el pastel a Mia y su esposo? ¿Tú les das el pastel a Mia y a su esposo? Again, notice that all the blanks were before the conjugated verb. Doy, decimos, traen, dice, das. All of them were before the conjugated verb. For this next activity, go ahead and take a look at the picture. Lisa buys a dress for her sister. I gave you the key words. Go ahead and put together a sentence for that. Pause the video if you need to, and then come back. What I would suggest is first write out the sentence. Lisa buys a dress. And then figure out to whom or for whom. That will give you the information you need to select the indirect object pronoun, and then just place it before the verb. Lisa le compra un vestido a su hermana. The sales clerk shows me the product. Mostrar is stem changing, so that O is going to change to UE. El vendedor me muestra el producto. Lily tells her best friend the gossip. Contar. Contar means to tell. Contar is also stem changing, so that O is going to change to UE. Lily le cuenta el chisme a su mejor amiga. Ken prepares a cake for my birthday. Ken me prepara un pastel para mi cumpleaños. Now, let's take it to the next level. I will ask you a question using the indirect object pronoun, and you will answer using the proper indirect object pronoun as well. So here, you might need to change the indirect object pronoun. Hopefully you said something like this. Ellos me visitan con frecuencia. El maestro te da mucha tarea. Does the teacher give you a lot of homework? Sí, me da mucha tarea. ¿Este banco te da una tarjeta de crédito? Hopefully you said, sí, me da una tarjeta de crédito. Now that we practice me and te, let's practice the third person indirect object pronoun. ¿A quién le compras regalos en Navidad? Le compro regalos a mi mamá. I'm using le because if I only buy presents for one person, I would just use le. If you buy presents for more people, you would have needed to use les. Les compro regalos a mis hermanos, o a mis papás, o a mis amigos. Otro ejemplo. Responde esta pregunta. Answer this question. ¿Le prestas dinero a tu mejor amigo? Sí, le presto dinero. Or you could have said, no, no le presto dinero. Notice that here, in the first answer, I put, sí, le presto dinero. I didn't add a tu mejor amigo. You could, but because I asked the question, do you lend money to your best friend? In conversation, we already both, you and I, know that we're talking about your best friend. So in that case, you would just say, sí, le presto dinero, because we know that that le is referring to your best friend. ¿Les muestras tus calificaciones a tus padres? Sí, les muestro mis calificaciones. Again, where does the indirect object pronoun go? El pronombre de objeto indirecto va antes del verbo conjugado. Now, you will find some sentences where you have two verbs right next to each other. When that happens, generally, you will have one conjugated verb, and the one after that may be an infinitive or a present progressive tense. So what I'm going to tell you is what to do with the indirect object pronoun in those cases. Si el verbo conjugado va seguido de un verbo infinitivo o un gerundio, tienes dos opciones. So in those cases, you have an option. Ejemplo, quiero comprar un libro para mi hermana. El verbo conjugado es quiero. The conjugated verb is quiero. I want. El verbo en verde, the verb in green, is not conjugated. It is infinitive. How do I know that a verb is not conjugated or is infinitive? It ends in ar, or ir. To buy. I want to buy. Un libro para mi hermana. A book for my sister. If we were going to rewrite this sentence and we wanted to say, I want to buy her a book, what would that look like? According to our first rule, you should put it before the conjugated verb. That rule still applies. So this is what it would look like. Le quiero comprar un cuaderno también. I want to buy her a notebook too. Now, I said that when you have this situation, you have an option. You could have said, quiero comprarle un cuaderno también. In other words, your second option is to put it after the second verb and attach it. So this looks more like English because he would say, I want to buy her a notebook too. So this placement is like the one that we have in English, except that it is attached to the verb. Again, you only have this option of putting the indirect object pronoun after the verb if you have this situation where the second verb is an infinitive or a present progressive tense. Here, I'm showing you an example with a conjugated verb followed by a verb using the present progressive. Estoy comprando. I am buying. Un libro para mi hermana. So I know I'm going to need le. Where would I place it? Option 1, your first rule still applies. You can just use the indirect object pronoun before the conjugated verb. Le estoy comprando un cuaderno también. Now, how do I know that comprando is using the present progressive? Because it ends in ando. If it was a verb that ended in er or ir, let's say beber, then it would end in yendo. So present progressive, the verb would end in ando or yendo. Back to our example. Your other option, estoy comprándole un cuaderno también. I am buying her a notebook too. In this case, when you're using the present progressive and we attach that le to the second verb, the word becomes longer. And in this case, when you have the present progressive, you will need to add an accent. Having said that, to begin with, I would recommend that you learn the first rule, which is you place the indirect object pronoun before the conjugated verb. Now, be aware that there are cases, like the ones I showed you in the last two slides, where the indirect object pronoun could be placed after. And in that case, recognize it. But for now, first learn the first rule and practice the first rule. And eventually, when you feel more comfortable, start using the indirect object pronoun in situations such as the one you see on this slide. Eso es todo por hoy, amigos. Recuerden que los pronombres de objeto indirecto son me, te, le, nos, os, les. En español, el pronombre de objeto indirecto va generalmente antes del verbo conjugado. Si has aprendido algo o si te ha servido de algo este tutorial, por favor, dame un me gusta, comparte y suscríbete. Quiero que sepan que aprecio mucho su apoyo. Mil gracias y hasta el próximo video. Adiós, amigos.